The microphone picked up every gasp, every rustle of paper, every manufactured tremor of her breath. On screen, it looked like a medical emergency. 43-year-old Paula Miller sat hunched at the plaintiff's table, one hand clamped dramatically over her chest, the other clutching a crumpled brown paper bag to her mouth. Her shoulders shook, her eyes squeezed shut. Each exaggerated inhale into the bag echoed through Judge Judy's silent courtroom. To anyone who didn't know better, it looked like a woman on the edge of collapse. The one person in the room who had seen more lies than a polygraph lab. It looked like a performance. Judge Judy sat absolutely still, arms folded, face unreadable. She didn't reach for a tissue. She didn't lean forward in concern. She didn't even blink. The cameras caught it all. 8 minutes later, two paramedics would stand in that same courtroom and calmly announce for the entire world to hear that Paula's attack was nothing more than theater. Within a week, the footage would be clipped, subtitled, and shared across every platform on Earth. Hashtag paperbag panic would trend for days. Commenters would point to Paula Miller as the symbol of everything wrong with fake victimhood. But in this moment, sitting under the hot studio lights, Paula still believed she'd found the perfect escape hatch. She'd been rehearsing for weeks. In the privacy of her bathroom, she'd practiced shallow breathing in the mirror, counting down the seconds until tears formed convincingly at the corners of her eyes. She'd watched panic attack how-to videos on YouTube, memorizing phrases like tachycardia, disassociation, flight response. She knew all the body cues, trembling fingers, wide stare, clutching at her throat. The brown paper bag in her purse hadn't come from some corner deli. She'd bought a whole pack online for this role. The silver medical alert bracelet on her wrist wasn't from a doctor. It arrived in a bubble mailer from an online marketplace 5 days ago. This was not a woman caught in sudden, overwhelming distress. This was a woman who'd built herself a script. Paula Miller didn't see herself as a scammer. In her own mind, she was a survivor, someone who'd learned how to work the system in a world that never gave her what she thought she deserved. Over the last 3 years, she had perfected a disgusting pattern that had cost strangers thousands and wasted countless hours of court time. In that span, she'd been the plaintiff in 9 different cases. Small claims, housing court, traffic, civil. The names of the defendants weren't connected to each other at all. The pattern was sue for emotional distress, spin a story about how their actions had shattered her mental health, cry in the right places, and the second a judge started leaning away from her narrative, she got sick. In June 2021, with a mechanic on the stand insisting she hadn't paid a legitimate repair bill, Paula's heartbeat had supposedly spiked 2 dangerous levels. She clutched her heart. The judge, alarmed, called paramedics. They found nothing. By then, the case was rescheduled. The mechanic, already losing money being in court, agreed to just drop it. In October 2022, facing down a stack of unpaid parking citations, Paula's breathing had gone shallow at just the right moment. She gasped, said she couldn't get air. Traffic court ground to a halt while EMTs evaluated her. Her blood pressure, textbook, her oxygen level, perfect. The judge busy, overbooked, and not a doctor cut. Her fines in light of her condition. February 2023, Paula claimed an anxiety attack so severe in a civil case that she slid off her chair and lay on the floor. Sirens, medics, normal vitals. Again, different courthouses, different judges. Same act. No one had put the pieces together until the day she decided to bring that act into Judge Judy's courtroom. This time, she wasn't chasing some $200 adjustment. She was after a bigger prize. She was suing Harold Bennett, 70 years old, retired history teacher, a widower who'd bought a small duplex as a retirement investment, thinking it would help pad his pension. For 8 months he'd rented the upstairs apartment to Paula. He thought he'd found a stable tenant. He found a tornado instead. Unauthorized deep purple paint on his beige walls, 2 unapproved cats urinating on the carpets, broken tiles in the bathroom, trash bags stacked on the balcony, leaking onto the downstairs neighbor's patio, late rent, excuses. And when he finally served her proper notice and took her to housing court, she vowed to drag him through hell for daring to question her. When she left, the security deposit barely scratched the $5,000 worth of repairs and cleaning. He thought it was over when the eviction was finalized. Then the papers arrived, Paula Miller v. Harold Bennett, claiming $4,000 for therapy expenses and psychological trauma allegedly caused by an illegal and abusive eviction. She insisted she'd never had anxiety a day in her life before Harold terrorized her. No receipts, no treatment records, nothing but words, and a plan. The problem for Paula was that Judge Judy had done her homework. Before walking into the courtroom that Tuesday, robe swishing behind her, Judy had spent half an hour with Paula's file. She'd flagged every previous case, every mysteriously timed attack, every mention of paramedics whose exams turned up normal. She'd called the fire station 2 blocks away. She'd arranged for a medic team to be on standby, and she'd quietly asked the court officer to have a patrol officer available if things went sideways. Paula thought she was the only one with a script. She had no idea the judge had written a bigger one around her. By the time the bailiff called the case Miller versus Bennett, the cameras were ready, the audience was settled, and the stage was set for a performance that would finally cost Paula something she couldn't fake her way out of. From the moment she took her seat, Paula radiated curated vulnerability. She'd chosen her outfit carefully, not flashy, not shabby. A soft cardigan over a modest blouse, neutral slacks, flats instead of heels. Her makeup was just a bit too pale under the lights, dark circles shadowed under her eyes with a swipe of eyeliner to make her look hollowed out. On her wrist, the new medical bracelet flashed. Occasionally, as she adjusted an invisible strand of hair, not enough to shout, just enough to suggest. Across from her, Harold Bennett sat in an off-the-rack suit that had probably seen more parent-teacher nights than formal courts. His hands shook slightly as he clutched a worn folder stuffed with photos, invoices, and copies of the lease. His shoulders sagged with the weight of someone who'd spent months trying to be polite and reasonable, and had been rewarded with threats and sleepless nights. The bailiff called, "All rise." Judge Judy entered, took her seat, and opened the file. "Miss Miller," she said without any warm-up, "you're suing your former landlord, Mr. Bennett, for $4,000, claiming he caused you emotional distress with a wrongful eviction that allegedly led to panic attacks and the need for therapy. Let's start there. Tell me about this anxiety disorder you say he caused." This was Paula's cue. She leaned into the microphone, shoulders drooping. "Your Honor," she began, voice carefully trembling, "I had never experienced anything like this before Mr. Bennett started harassing me. The constant notes, the banging on my door, the threats of throwing my belongings out. It destroyed my mental health." She pressed a hand to her chest, just enough to set the stage for later. "I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake all night waiting for the next knock. I started having full-blown panic episodes, heart racing, chest pain, total dissociation. I thought I was dying. I've been in therapy for months because of what he did. I just want help paying for the treatment I need to function like a normal person again." It was a good speech if you'd never seen her before, if you hadn't already read for prior transcripts that followed the same emotional beats almost word for word. Judge Judy let a beat of silence fall. Then, in that deceptively mild tone she reserved for dangerous witnesses, she asked, "Miss Miller, you say you're in therapy. Do you have receipts for these sessions you're asking me to reimburse?" Paula's fingers flexed slightly on the edge of the podium. "Well, I didn't think I'd need to bring them," she said. "I mean, it's very personal. I can absolutely get them if you want." Judy's face didn't change. "This case," she said, "is about therapy costs. You've asked this court to award you thousands of dollars in treatment expenses, and you came without a single bill or record to prove any of it." Paula forced a bashful little laugh as if the question were unreasonable. "I didn't realize," she said. I thought my word would be enough. I can give you my therapist's name." "Please do," Judy replied. "Dr. Hernandez," Paula said, the name landing just a bit too quickly. "She's on Franklin. I've been seeing her for about 6 months now, since the eviction." Judge Judy jotted something on her pad. The simple act made Paula shift her weight. Then Judy turned to Harold. "Mr. Bennett," she said, "let's hear from you." Harold cleared his throat, eyes darting briefly toward Paula before settling on the judge. "Your Honor," he said, I'm not used to this. I taught high school history for 35 years. I've rented out that upstairs unit for 15. I've never had a problem this bad in my life." He opened his folder with trembling fingers and began passing photos to the bailiff, who brought them up to the bench.
"She moved in fine," he said. "First couple of months were okay. Then I started getting complaints. The downstairs neighbor said there was a smell. I went up to check. There were bags of trash stacked in the hallway. Cat litter trays overflowing. The carpets." His voice caught. "They were ruined. Stained clear through to the padding." The photos told the rest. Deep gouges on the hardwood floors. Walls painted a heavy dungeon dark blue without permission. Broken tiles in the shower, one actually missing, leaving a jagged hole. A kitchen counter burned in a perfect iron-shaped print. I tried to talk to her. Harold continued. "I left notes. Knocked politely. She told me if I didn't like how she lived, I shouldn't have rented to a real person. When I mentioned the lease, she laughed and said papers don't scare her." He pulled out invoices. "I used her security deposit for what I could," he said. "It barely covered a third. I had to dip into my savings. I'm on a fixed income. I was losing sleep, worrying I'd have to sell the place." Judge Judy flipped through the receipts. $2,300 for new flooring. $1,200 for paint and labor. $800 for deep cleaning. Hundreds more for tile replacement and plumbing fixes. All told, Harold said quietly, repairs were about $5,000, plus the last month's rent she never paid. $1,200. I filed for eviction only when I had no other choice. Everything was legal. The judge granted it. I thought it was done. Then I got papers saying I'd ruined her life. Judy turned back to Paula. Double quotes, "Miss Miller," she said. "Those photos are not normal wear and tear. How do you explain treating someone else's property like this?" Paula's tone sharpened. "Just a hint. Your Honor, those pictures are very misleading," she said. "But those floors were old. The paint was an upgrade. And some of that damage was there before I even moved in. He's just using it to make me look bad." "You signed a move-in condition form?" Judy asked Harold. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, holding up a checklist clearly marked "no damage" in multiple sections. "He signed that too," Harold added. "She did. Right there." Judge Judy glanced at Paula. "That your signature?" she asked. Paula's jaw tightened. "It looks like it," she muttered. "Let's go back," Judy said, voice now very, very calm. "You testified that before this eviction, you had never experienced panic attacks. Never had anxiety issues. Never been in treatment. Is that what you told me?" "Yes," Paula said quickly. "Mr. Bennett's harassment caused all of this. Before him, I was fine." Judy leaned back, the faintest hint of a smile ghosting at the corners of her mouth. "That is interesting," she said, "because I have some public records here that suggest your nervous system has been very busy in other courtrooms." Paula blinked. "I don't understand," she said. "You've been a plaintiff." Judge Judy said, sliding open another folder. "In 9 cases over the last 3 years." She began reading. March 2021, small claims over a body shop bill. "You reported severe cardiac distress mid-hearing. Paramedics were called. Vitals? Normal case. Postponed and dropped." Paula shifted. August 2022, traffic court. "Multiple unpaid parking citations. You reported respiratory failure. Vitals again. Completely ordinary. Fine reduced anyway." A low murmur rolled through the audience. February 2023, civil dispute. "You called for an ambulance from the courtroom." "I thought I was dying," Judy quoted. Medics cleared you on site within 15 minutes. She shut the folder with a soft thump. Miss Miller, she said. It appears your anxiety disorders are very closely tied to your court dates. The color drained slightly from Paula's face. That's not. Those were different, she said. You're twisting this. I have a condition. It flares under stress. Funny, Judy replied. How it seems to flare most violently when a judge starts asking you for receipts. Paula could feel herself losing the room. She could see it in the faces in the gallery. The way a few people were now outright glaring at her instead of looking sympathetic. The way Harold's shoulders had lifted just a fraction. Breathing a little easier as judge, Judy voiced the things he'd felt but couldn't prove. She felt the judgment closing in and did what she'd always done when that tightness hit her chest. She reached for her performance. Her hand slid dramatically to her sternum. Her eyes widened. I can't, she stammered. I can't. Breathe. She fumbled for her handbag with trembling fingers, digging past her wallet to grab the brown paper bag she'd folded and refolded a dozen times at home. I'm having one now, she gasped, pressing the bag to her mouth. Oh God, my heart. Her breathing ramped up into a rapid, shallow pant. Shoulders jerking. She slumped slightly, letting her hair fall forward to obscure her face, giving her cover to peek through and measure the effect. A woman in the second row put a hand to her own chest. Eyes wide, the bailiff took an instinctive step forward. Harold froze, caught between concern and déjà vu, remembering all the times Paula had claimed she was being attacked by his polite knocks on the door. The court reporter's fingers hovered over her keys. Uncertain, the audience held its breath. Judge Judy did not move. She remained exactly as she was, arms folded, posture straight, gaze fixed on Paula with the same interest. You might give a slow traffic light. 10 seconds, 15. The only sound was Paula's loud, theatrical breaths into the bag. I need help, she moaned, peeking through her fingers just long enough to scan the bench. Nothing. No alarm. No flurry. No shouted orders. Your honor, she gasped. Please, my heart. It's tachycardic. I feel outside my body. She'd practiced that line. It didn't land the way she'd imagined. The silence in response wasn't admiration. It was scrutiny. Judge Judy finally spoke. Her voice was utterly flat. Ms. Miller, she said, are you finished with your performance? A small laugh broke out in the back row and was instantly shushed. Paula's rhythm stuttered. For a split second, the panting faltered. She caught herself, sucking in another exaggerated breath. I need medical attention, she insisted between gasps. This is real. I can't breathe correctly. My heart's racing. Judge Judy didn't argue with her. She reached instead for the black phone on the side of her bench. The bailiff's eyebrows went up. In all his years standing guard there, he'd very rarely seen her use it in open court. She pressed a button. Send the paramedics up, please, she said calmly. Not taking her eyes off Paula, Ms. Miller is reporting acute medical distress, chest pain, breathing difficulty, disassociation. We take that very seriously. And while you're at it, have an officer from downstairs come up as well. I want a sworn witness to whatever we're about to see. She hung up. Paula's attack shifted gears in an instant. Her breath slowed, just a hair. Her eyes snapped fully open. Wait, she blurted. Maybe it's passing. Sometimes they come and go. I don't want to waste resources. If I could have a glass of water. No, Judge Judy said, her tone as unyielding as granite. You told this court you were having a medical emergency. You invoked medical terms. You presented yourself as someone in danger. We do not ignore those claims. We document them. The bailiff, on a quiet nod, slipped out through the side door to hurry the process along. You don't understand, Paula said, clutching the bag but no longer actually breathing into it. It's better now. I don't need an ambulance. I'm okay. Judy's eyes didn't soften. What I understand, she said, is that in the last 3 years, paramedics have been called to look you over in 4 separate courtrooms, and each time they've found you in perfect health. I also understand that every minute those professionals spend disproving your theater is a minute they could have spent on someone truly in crisis. She leaned forward, voice like a scalpel. This time, Ms. Miller, we're going to let them finish the job. In front of everyone. The audience was now utterly silent. Paula sat rigid in her chair, brown bag crumpled in her hands, color actually draining from her complexion, not from lack of oxygen, but from the dawning realization that she'd finally run into a judge who was not going to blink. From down the hall came the distant squeak of gurney wheels and the soft jangle of equipment. Bag stopped 3 minutes later to the second. The courtroom doors opened. Two EMTs stepped in, a woman with her hair pulled back in a practical braid, and a man with a close-cropped beard. They wore navy uniforms with patches on their shoulders, carrying a portable monitor, a blood pressure cuff, and a case of supplies. Ma'am, the female EMT said as she approached Paula, professional concern in her voice. We understand you're having a panic attack. Can you tell me what you're feeling right now? Paula's eyes darted to Judge Judy, then back to the EMT. I was short of breath, she said, bag lowering an inch. My chest felt tight. I thought I was going to pass out, but I think it's getting a little better. Any pain radiating to your arm or jaw? The EMT asked. Not now, Paula hedged. Maybe a little before? The EMT nodded, completely non-judgmental. We're going to check your vitals, she said. Just breathe normally for me. But cuff went around Paula's arm. The pulse oximeter clipped onto her. Finger. The stethoscope bell pressed lightly to her chest. Asterisk beep. 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 The little monitor screen glowed as numbers came up in green. EMT read them off. Her voice steady and matter-of-fact. Blood pressure 118/76, she said. That's within the normal range. Heart rate 84. Also within normal limits for a sitting adult. Oxygen saturation 99%. Lungs sound clear. Asterisk. She glanced at her partner, who'd been watching Paula's breathing pattern closely. No visible respiratory distress, he confirmed quietly. The lead EMT turned toward Judge Judy. Your Honor, she said, we're not seeing any clinical signs of an acute panic episode or other medical emergency. Her vitals are stable. She's safe to remain here. There's no indication she needs transport or further intervention at this time. Judge Judy nodded once. For the record, she said, the paramedics are reporting no tachycardia, no abnormal blood pressure, no oxygen compromise, and no objective evidence of distress. Is that accurate? The EMT nodded. Yes, ma'am, she said. That's correct. Thank you, Judy said. You're excused. But EMTs packed up their equipment and exited as quickly and quietly as they'd come. All eyes in the courtroom swung back to Paula, the brown paper. Bag lay limp in her lap. Her fake trembling had stopped completely, for the first time since she'd taken the stand. She had nothing to do with her hands. Judge Judy let the quiet work on Paula for a long, heavy moment. Then she spoke. Ms. Miller, she said, one of two things is true. Either you called trained medical professionals away from potential real emergencies for no reason, again, or you just recovered from what must be the world's fastest, cleanest panic attack. Which is it? Paula swallowed hard. I was scared, she said weakly. This is overwhelming. Sometimes my attacks don't show up on machines. They're more mental than... Stop, Judy said. The word cracked across the room. You don't get to hide behind vague mental explanations when force separate. Paramedic teams in 3 different years have documented you as completely stable in 4 different courts. She reached for a fresh folder. Bright red tabs stuck out along the edge. And since you've brought up history, she said, let's have a look at yours. She lifted page after page. June 2021, she read. Small claims court. Mechanic dispute. Attack mid-cross-examination, cleared. October 2022. Traffic violations. Breathless when facing potential license suspension, cleared. February 2023. Civil suit. sobbing on the floor when opposing counsel presented incriminating texts. Cleared. June 2023. Housing court, different landlord. Complaint of chest pain right after judge mentioned a possible adverse ruling. Cleared. She looked up, pinning Paula to the chair. Do you see a pattern? She asked. That's not, Paula began. In each case. Judy overrode her. Your symptoms appeared at the precise moment your case began to crumble. Each time, a judge gave you the benefit of the doubt. Paused. Postponed. Softened. Each time. Emergency responders wasted time rolling out what you knew deep down wasn't real. She pulled out another stack, and as if that wasn't enough, she said, You also left us a lovely public trail. The printed pages bore Paula's username at the top. 24 hours after your heart palpitations in 2021, Judy read. You posted a video from a concert. Anxiety is gone when the music hits, complete with 3 dancing emojis. A few people in the gallery shook their heads. Day after your respiratory crisis, she continued. You checked in at a spin and sculpt class. Killing cardio. Snickers quickly stifled. Day after your last I'm dying courtroom ambulance ride. You posted photos on the beach with a drink in your hand. Caption, nothing like salt air to clear out the stress. Doctors Who. Judy let the pages fall back into the folder. In other words, she said, you bounce back from these supposedly devastating attacks remarkably fast. When you're not in front of a judge. Paula's shoulders sagged. This is invasion of my privacy, she muttered. Judy's eyes flared. You posted this, she snapped. Voluntarily. To thousands of strangers. You invited the world in. Don't whine about privacy when those same posts now expose you for what you are in here. She looked to the audience. Then to the camera. People watch this program, she said, voice steady. Because they still believe somewhere that courts are where truth matters. That if you walk in and present your case honestly, someone will listen. When people like you, Ms. Miller, turn courtrooms into stages for fabricated medical drama, you erode that faith. She turned back to Paula. Asterisk. You didn't have a panic attack today, she said. You had a credibility collapse. Paula's eyes filled, real tears this time. Your Honor, I do struggle, she said. With stress. With anxiety. Maybe I exaggerated. But I was genuinely scared about this hearing. About what would happen to me if the only thing you were scared of, Judy cut in, was losing. And it turns out that fear was justified. She reached for the judgment sheet. As for your claim, she said, writing quickly, it is denied in its entirety. You have presented no proof of therapy, no diagnosis, no causal link between Mr. Bennett's lawful actions and your alleged distress. She looked at Harold. Mr. Bennett, she said, your counterclaim for property damage and unpaid rent is granted in full. $4,900 for repairs, $1,200 for rent, and $1,000 for your filing fees and time. Total judgment against Ms. Miller, $7,100. Paula's mouth fell open. I can't pay that, she said. I came here because I needed. You came here, Judy interrupted, expecting to walk out richer. You are leaving poorer, not because a judge picked on you, but because reality finally caught up to you. She signed the judgment. I will also be recommending, she added, that this transcript and recording be made available to the administrative judges in this jurisdiction, so that the next time you feel a paper bag calling your name the moment a question gets hard, the person on the bench will know exactly who and what they're dealing with. She lifted the gavel. Court is adjourned, she said. Ms. Miller, get out of my courtroom. The gavel cracked down. The sound felt like a door slamming on a long, ugly chapter of her life. The internet devoured it. Within hours of the episode airing, a 30-second clip of Paula's attack and Judge Judy's unblinking stare was everywhere. No slow music overlay this time. Just the raw audio. Exaggerated breaths into a paper bag. Judge Judy's flat. Are you finished with your performance? And the paramedic calmly announcing, all vitals are normal. People added. Captions. When your Oscar audition is in the wrong building. When you try it on Judge Judy and forget. She's seen every scam in the book. Side by side. Memes popped up, one panel, Paula hyperventilating, the next, Judy scrolling calmly through her file. The hashtag paperback panic trended. So did hashtag Judge Judy Justice think pieces? Followed, lawyers weighed in about the impact of people faking medical emergencies in court, paramedics, wrote threads about wasted calls and what it feels like to leave a chest pain call they know is real to go see yet another I can't breathe, whose numbers are perfect. Former defendants of Paula's emboldened by seeing her finally exposed popped up in comments. That's the same thing she did in my case, one wrote under a repost. I thought I was crazy for thinking it was fake. Thank you, Judge Judy. Asterisk blogs and podcasts dissected the moment Judy picked up the phone. Not to stall, not to dramatize, but to force Paula's lie into the harsh light of objective measurement. Unlike most viral criminals, Paula didn't issue a notes app apology. She went silent. Jobs she'd applied for quietly dried up once. HR people Googled her name and saw not a resume, but reaction videos. Landlords who once might have considered her application saw the clip and moved on. For years, Paula had treated courtrooms like stages and judges like marks. The day she tried that with someone who had already watched her whole reel ahead of time, she stopped being the director of her story. On some late nights, scrolling anonymously through the same platforms that had roasted her, she'd run across one particular quote from Judge Judy that fans had clipped from that episode and set in big white letters over a freeze frame of Judy's face. I don't punish panic. I punish performance. Underneath, comment after comment, this is why you don't fake it. This is why we still respect her. This is what accountability looks like. In the end, that was the real viral moment. Not the shaky breathing, not the paper bag, but the image of a judge who refused to be moved by tears on command in a courtroom full of people seeing, maybe for the first time, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do with a liar is exactly what Judge Judy did. Nothing. Just let the truth and a blood pressure cuff do the talking.